So, mentioned that the House, the other day, I think we mentioned this, right? That the House voted to remove Confederate statues from the Capitol. 120, I think it was, Republicans voted against this. Most of these were raised during when? Like the 1920s, right? By the sisters in the Confederacy. They were trying to push the lost cause.
The Klan times.
Klan times. 6 million card-carrying members of the KKK in 1920, I believe it was. 100 million people living in the country. 6% were boasting about it. Never mind, maybe, a couple of percent who were just quiet about it. Here is Matt Walsh, desperately trying to carve out a niche for himself. You wonder why 8% of high school students only know that the Civil War was fought because of slavery? Here's Matt Walsh, wants to bring that number down to 4%.
Now, we should also note that some of the Confederate statues, quote unquote, and the phrase Confederate statue here is a little bit is a little misleading, because many of these statues memorialize men who served in Congress after the war was over. Okay? A statue of Wade Hampton was sent by South Carolina, for example. He opposed secession, but remained loyal to his state when it seceded and became a brigadier general of the cavalry for the Confederates. In the 3 decades that he lived after the war, he served as governor, U.S. senator, and railroad commissioner. Joseph Wheeler was sent by Alabama. He joined the Confederate Army, eventually rose to the...
Pause. So he was put up there because he was railroad commissioner? We put a statue?
Wade Hampton was one of the most, the wealthiest slave owners of the Confederacy before the war broke out. So he was against secession because it was bad for his giant business of like forcing slaves to work on his plantation. And then he led like a huge cavalry because he had the wealth to do that. And then after the war came and everyone got back, let bygones be bygones, and said, let's get together again and, come together for the sake of this country. Yeah, he was back into the, governing structure of this country.
335 slaves by 1860.
Yeah, he was the wealthiest, Hampton was.
And where was he from? What state was he the governor?
South Carolina.
Incidentally, go back and listen to what we have talked about during Reconstruction. The massacres that took place in South Carolina, the attacks on black politicians in the black political class.
He may have came up actually, Wade Hampton.
Yeah, I suspect this guy was actually involved in the, I don't know what we call this.
The restoration of white supremacy.
The restoration of white supremacy during Reconstruction. Continue.
Seceded and became a brigadier general of the cavalry for the Confederates. In the 3 decades that he lived after the war, he served as governor, U.S. senator, and railroad commissioner. Joseph Wheeler was sent by Alabama. He joined the Confederate Army, eventually rose to the rank of lieutenant general. Then after the war, became a lawyer and eventually a politician. He served in the House from 1881 all the way until 1900. These are not all people who are known to history solely as members of the Confederacy. Many of them had distinguished careers after the fact. That they were members of the Confederacy is a reflection of the fact that they lived in the South. So what Congress is saying today is that Southern states simply are not allowed to...
Slave owners, massive slave owners, massive slave owners. That they were members of the... undoubtedly, there were people who lived in the South who did not fight for the Confederacy.
And there were slaves that revolted. Put up a statue of some of them.
Well, they put Nat Turner in there.
They didn't serve in Congress for 19 years. Boy, but if we had we would put up a statue for every person who served in Congress for 19 years. Are you kidding me? There would be no room for actual members of the House. Everybody would be a statue. But continue. With this guy, I mean, this guy's really this isn't just Matt Walsh's normal stupidity. He's running some real interference here from some, all-stars of slave owners.
Many of them had distinguished careers after the fact. That they were members of the Confederacy is a reflection of the fact that they lived in the South. So what Congress is saying today is that southern states simply are not allowed to honor anyone who lived in or served their state from the middle part of the 19th century up until the beginning of the 20th, basically.
Pause it. Yeah, let's refer to the era where they attacked the existing U.S. government and wanted to secede as just this temporal period. Yeah, I actually think that, like, maybe we should extend that for another 20 years. How's that? Go ahead.
Served their state from the middle part of the 19th century up until the beginning of the 20th, basically.
Oh my God.
Congress has decreed, or will decree once the Senate votes, that these states must look elsewhere to find people to memorialize. That is to say, other states are telling those states which historical people they may or may not choose. And many Republicans, 67 in the House alone, are on board with that plan.
Well, I don't think it's other states are telling other states. I think the federal government is saying, we're not going to put those statues here in the Capitol. That's what it is.
Of the people who attacked us in the name of slavery.
Exactly. If you guys want to put up homages to these slave owners and these guys who basically restored white supremacy during Reconstruction, that's something that you guys can handle. But if I remember correctly, in South Carolina, the South Carolinians decided to take down the Confederate flag. We're talking about the federal Capitol building. It is unbelievable. There is absolutely nothing that these guys can't find to A, make themselves aggrieved about, and B, to essentially mystify and shroud the exercise of white supremacy.
And do it without just barely any research. Like Matt Walsh having to take this authoritative tone of voice as if he knows who any of these people were before, like, the little packet he got on it.
He might, though. He might. That is probably worse if he does know, frankly. Ignorance is not a defense in this, but it's certainly an explanation.
Yeah, he's nasty enough to idolize those guys, but I think he's just too intellectually lazy.
Yeah, that's also true. Folks, there's more of what you've just saw where that came from. That's if you hit the subscribe and like button. Thank you. Really, thank you.